their lives over 50. That's a lot of living. So it helps to have a wise friend and fierce defender in your corner. A friend like AARP. So your health lives longer.
This is just slow-mo karate?
Just slow-mo karate.
Your money lives longer.
I just bought that.
I just sold that.
And your happiness lives longer. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Join today.
Welcome to AARP Illinois' virtual event. It's so wonderful to have you with us. AARP is on a mission to connect with individuals across various communities, especially those aged 50 and above. We're here to listen, understand, and address the unique needs of you and your community as we age. Our goal is to enrich your experience by expanding our local activities, providing opportunities for you to discover and engage with all that life has to offer right here in your own community and virtually. As we journey through today's event, we invite you to consider joining our dedicated team of AARP volunteers. It's a chance to make a meaningful impact and help us better serve those 50 plus across the nation. Connect with us and be a part of this vibrant movement toward positive change. Welcome. And let's make this event both fun and transformative.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Philippe Largent. I'm a relatively new state director for AARP Illinois, and I'm delighted to be here this morning to be in Peoria on the campus of Bradley University. It really is a pleasure, and what a crowd! Thank you very, very much for turning out. Please keep enjoying your breakfast while the program is ongoing. Before I just give some opening comments, I do want to say, as state director, I'm responsible for all the programming for AARP Illinois across the state, and your AARP team is 16 persons strong. We have offices in Springfield and Chicago, but we do programming all over the state. We could not do what we do without the help and support of our volunteers. They are like other staff, but they're volunteers, so we don't have to pay them. But they do a heck of a lot of work, and I know they did a lot of work this morning. Can I ask all of our AARP volunteers just to stand up and seek some recognition this morning? Now, for those of you that did not stand to be recognized as an AARP volunteer, there's an opportunity for you. If you would like to become a volunteer, we would love to have you. And I'm happy to give you more information. There's staff around here that can give you more information on how to get involved. You can do what you want when you want, and we would love to make you and bring you on as a part of the team. And I want to recognize our honored guests today, Senator Koehler, Representative Spain. Good to see both of you. Look, we're in a new age. We're in a digital age. We are recording this event. It's going to be aired for viewers online. I don't know when the schedule is, but it is going to be replayed later for people who couldn't attend the event in person. So to everyone who is going to see this event online, welcome. Thank you for signing up to attend, and I hope you find this informative. Like I said, I'm delighted to welcome everyone here to the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Bradley University, the legislative breakfast. Today's event symbolizes the ongoing collaboration and shared commitment between AARP and Bradley University's OLLI program in enriching the lives of those aged 50 and above in our community. I want to extend My heartfelt thanks to Bradley University for their unwavering support and investment in education and community development through the years, particularly in making our annual legislative breakfast an outstanding success. And by the turnout, you all are doing a great job. At AARP Illinois, our mission is to empower individuals to choose how they age, to choose how they live as they age. With over 1.7 million members in Illinois, we are unwavering in our commitment to advocating for the needs of members and ensuring that the voices of all those aged 50 and above are heard at every level of government. Events like today are a testament to our collective efforts to integrate our mission into the very fabric of our community, bringing together city, state, and federal elected officials to discuss and address the issues that matter most to Illinois seniors. It is now my pleasure to introduce Brad McMillian, the Executive Director of the Institute for Principal Leadership and Public Service at Bradley University, who will serve as our moderator today. Brad, please.
Thanks, Felipe, and it's a joy to be at this breakfast again. I don't know, Lori, if this is our 7th or 8th annual legislative, maybe 9, she said, legislative breakfast. But this is always a great event. It's great to see such a great crowd. I have worked many years with the team at AARP and Lori and Ryan, and they do great work advocating for the issues that are important to all of you. I'm also an absolutely huge fan of the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. Michelle Riggio and her team does an amazing job here at Bradley University. So let's give them a big round of applause. I've had many of you in classes over the years. I know you guys always ask very probing, thoughtful, sometimes opinionated questions, which is very good. But we do have some ground rules for this morning. So on your table are these little pads. And so what we're requesting is that you write your questions on these pads. And then when you have your question written, just raise your hand and one of the volunteers will come and pick it up and they'll bring it to me. And I usually try to get through all the questions, don't worry. But sometimes there's some commonality between some questions, so I can combine them. I will start off by asking some questions that AARP gave me legislatively to our two fantastic panel members here. I think most of you know that the Institute of Principal Leadership and Public Service, which I serve as the executive director, we promote bipartisanship, civility, collaboration, and high ethical standards in public service. How many of you, by raise of hands, think we need more of that in America? Okay. And I also, anytime I agree to host an event or moderate an event, I always have an equal number of Republicans and Democrats because it's important that we hear thoughtful views from both sides. And I hope you understand, we are incredibly lucky in Central Illinois with the bipartisan leadership that we've had at the federal level, state level, and local level. Our elected officials actually know that it's important to work together to serve all of you. I wish we could replicate that a little bit more across the country, but we have a good thing going here. Now it's my privilege to welcome our new interim president, Jonathan Michael. He is retired as the chairman and CEO of RLI Corporation, where he served with great distinction for 40 years in all kinds of different leadership positions. He's also served on the Bradley Board of Trustees since 2016. So let's give a warm welcome to Interim President Jonathan Michael.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, I retired June 1st from RLI and started June 1st at Bradley, so came out of retirement. So welcome to Bradley. Glad to have you here. Thank you, Senator Koehler and Representative Ryan Spain for taking your time to out of your busy schedules to address the concerns of the community. One of Bradley's strategic imperatives is a commitment to create a community within and beyond campus, and the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute is a vital part of that imperative. As the largest program in the Division of Continuing Education, OLLI connects our campus to our community and has done so for some 30 years. It's nationally recognized. It's twice endowed program with more than 1,100 active members. So OLLI is all about collaboration, community, and learning, the perfect way to strengthen Bradley's ties to the Peoria area. It's OLLI's successful partnership with AARP Illinois that started this legislative breakfast back in 2016. We appreciate our friends at AARP Illinois for making today's event so accessible to everyone. Welcome to Bradley. Enjoy your time with our elected officials. Ask them some probing questions, and I'll turn the microphone back to Brad.
So before I allow them to say some welcoming remarks, I want to say a few things about the two individuals that we are going to have on our panel this morning. So one of the things, if you're observant, if you came on campus and you were over by Olin Hall, you would see that over there, that's closed down and there's a bunch of construction vehicles over there because this summer we're renovating the science labs and putting a new roof on due to state capital funds that Senator Koehler and Representative Spain got for Bradley University. So let's give them a big round of applause for that. I could go on and on, have been incredible champions and helpful to Bradley University. And even though Senator Koehler is not technically an alum, his wife is, his daughter is, and he bleeds Bradley red. He did get a little bit conflicted when his district changed and it included ISU. So he called and asked me my advice on that, and I said, just wear red. I said, you're going to be okay if you just wear red. Ryan Spain and I go way back. He was actually my intern when I was chief of staff to Congressman Ray LaHood before I came to Bradley. And we have worked closely together and have been good friends for a very long time. And again, I think that if you knew behind the scenes how closely these two work together with Jahan Gordon Booth and Representative Travis Weaver, you would be surprised. They really care about the betterment of our community and our region and our area. And so we're lucky there. And before I forget, I got to do one other thing. It was on my list and I forgot. There's a couple other people I want to recognize because these guys both know that staff is critical to their success. And the person who heads up Senator Koehler's office is Jennifer Allison, who does a wonderful job. So let's recognize her. And we have Beth Jensen from Congressman Eric Sorensen's office, who was a longtime Peoria City Council member and took over that position recently. So let's recognize Beth. So now I'll let you guys say whatever opening remarks you want. Then I'll ask you a few questions from AARP and then, but go ahead and start thinking about the questions you want to ask. Start writing them down on your pad. Raise your hand and they'll be brought up to me and we'll just keep going through them until all questions have been asked. So For seniority reasons, we'll let Senator Koehler go first.
I guess I resemble that remark. Well, thank you. This is one of my favorite events of the year. And have I been here every year? Where's Laurie? Have I been here every year as one of your guests? I think so. I think that's true. Yeah, and I enjoy this because you're all relatively my own age, right? I'm 75, so. And I'll tell you a defining moment on getting old was when my wife and I watched Jeopardy every night, and so there was some younger folks on the panel for Jeopardy, and they had a picture of Robert Redford up, and they wanted to identify, and nobody knew who it was. My goodness. Gee whiz. I also want to say that AARP is a great organization. In the digital age, we don't have many magazines coming to our houses anymore, but I do have two that come regularly every month, AARP and Costco. Right? And I read them cover to cover. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much. Only thing I'll say is this is now my 18th year in the Senate. I marked that by my oldest granddaughter. She's going to be a freshman at U of I this fall. She was born in between the time I had a primary and a general election back in 2006, and she's going to now vote for me. She said she is. She's going to vote for me now this year. So you can't grow your own. But that's and she's going into political science. Imagine that. So. It's a great opportunity for me and my life. It's really a privilege to be able to serve in this capacity, and I don't take it for granted at all. In fact, I'm sure Ryan has the same experience. When you walk into the Capitol and you look up at the rotunda and you just see all the beauty and the history of that place, you just kind of think, I'm very lucky to be able to even be here. And to represent you, and so you never should take that for granted. It's an awesome responsibility, but it's also an awesome privilege. So I just want you to know that. I am up again for re-election this next year. This will probably be my last election. They don't ever say never, but it's a time to begin to think about winding down. And I still got a lot of things to do. There's a couple of big bills I'm working on. One is to adjust the estate tax for small farmers. And it's something that the Farm Bureau has really engaged in, and it's to help so that families don't have to sell the farm once they inherit it just to pay the taxes on it. And I'll tell you why that's a risk in Illinois is because we have 96% of our farms are family farms. When that happens, when families have to sell their farms just to pay the taxes, then corporate interests come in and buy it up. And we don't need that. Illinois has a strong tradition of family farms, and we are the most productive agricultural state in the nation, and we need to keep that tradition. That's our number one industry. Secondly, I'm working on a bill which is called the Clean Transportation Standard. It's to create a low carbon fuel standard. And in a sense, what we're trying to do is we're trying to reduce the carbon in our atmosphere. We're trying to lower everyone's CI scores, carbon intensity scores. The way to do that is to, number one, promote electrification. And we have Rivian, which is in my district. And Rivian is a booming company. They're expanding. They're going to be, they've got 5 million square feet under one roof right now. They're going to be expanding that when they bring on their new R2 and their R3 products. But we also need to switch from fossil fuels to plant-based fuels. And that's very important because, again, Illinois, this is our base, our agricultural base. And so we can take soybeans and we can take corn and we can produce renewable diesel. And we can produce what they call SAF, which is sustainable aviation fuel. The airline industry is going to be changing drastically in the next few years so that they are going to be using ethanol-based fuel. And that's going to really be, the heart and soul of agriculture in Illinois. And I think that's important because climate change is real, in spite of the political discussions about it. Climate change is real. And we have to begin to do everything we can to not disrupt the economy that we have, but to gradually transition so that we now have a cleaner environment. One of the things that I didn't wear my shoes today, I should have, but I just bought some new shoes from a company in Portland called OLLI. And Ken Ziga's here, so I want to talk about the natural fiber welding. I've taken 2 tours of the natural fiber welding. I have shoes that I tell all my friends, I wear them down to the Senate and I say, these shoes, when I'm done with them, I can put them in my blender and I can take and put them in my garden and they'll decompose, right? And if you listen to both Steve and Luke Everall's talk about the company, all their products are plants, the rubber and the different components that go into the soles, into the fabric, into the it's called Miriam. It's a leather-like material. This is the future. This is the future, to be entrepreneurs and to explore the possibilities of what it's going to take to have us survive on this planet. And to me, that's exciting, and that's where the job growth is in Illinois. And I want to finish some of this, and I'm excited to get to work on this next spring. And I think we're going to have a good year. But I also want to, in handing this over to Ryan, to say what a partner he's been. And the 3 of us, Jahan and you and I, we've been together for a long time now. And in fact, at the beginning of COVID, Ryan and Jahan and I were on the phone, I think every day, wasn't it? Every day? 7 a.m. Yeah, 7 a.m. have had phone calls. And so that's a kind of partnership really that's important. And I think Peoria, Illinois has a reputation of having good bipartisan relationships, and we intend to keep that. So with that, my partner and my friend.
Well, thanks, Senator Koehler. It's really been a great privilege to know Dave for, boy, and listen. And being able to have the expertise of volunteers, of highly educated seniors that are coming forward and explaining complicated problems to us as legislators is absolutely essential. So I just appreciate AARP. I appreciate OLLI. Look forward to the questions that we'll talk about today. Listen, what a wild time in American history. And you could maybe say that anytime, but if you think about what's happened in the last month in the United States of America, it really is one of those pivotal moments in history that we'll be telling future generations about for a long time to come. So we've got a lot of challenges, and it's going to be a wild roller coaster at the national level. A lot of challenges that we're working in a collaborative fashion to try to resolve here in the state of Illinois, because we want to make sure that all of you stay and continue to be a part of this great state, and that our children, grandchildren have a good future here. And so I say all of that knowing that there are challenges, and we'll talk about them, but aren't we lucky to live here in the Peoria area? There is no better place that we could possibly be. This is a community with incredible amenities, outpouring of generosity, a quality of life that is second to none. So we want to do everything that we can to maximize this great place that we all call home. And we look forward to taking your questions and getting your suggestions on how we can do that this morning. Thanks.
Before Brad starts, I want to get the final word in too, not only the first word. I think we need to thank Brad McMillian, because the Center for Principled Leadership has been a driving force in helping to really bring together us in a bipartisan way and to set an example for what politics really ought to be about. And so, Brad, just thank you for all your work.
Thanks to both of you. And in my introduction, this is another thing I want before I get into my questions, prepared questions that I have. And then again, please write your questions down and raise your hand up and give your questions that will be brought up to me. But the other thing we're really lucky about is the leadership that is represented here. So Senator Koehler is the Assistant Majority Leader in the Illinois Senate. Top leadership on the Democratic side. Ryan is the Deputy Republican Leader on the Republican side. I think they call Jahan Speaker Pro Tem, which is the number 2 leadership position in the House on the Democratic side. So I know of no area in the state that has the level of state legislative leadership that we do. So we're very, very lucky in that regard as well. So one of the first questions that I have for both of you, and we'll go back and forth as far as alternating the response, but family caregivers in Illinois spend an average of $7,000 annually on care-related expenses for their loved ones. Nearly 1.3 million family caregivers in Illinois provide approximately $21 billion worth of unpaid care each year. What actions do you support to help better support our state's family caregivers in Illinois? And since I let Senator Koehler start with welcoming remarks, I'll let Representative Spain start with responding to that question. And then Dave, if you would go after him.
Well, thanks for the question, Brad. And I think it's a really good one. And it speaks to the high costs of healthcare and providing assistance to our seniors, to those that are in need. Both Senator Koehler and I serve on a collaborative, bipartisan, bicameral Medicaid working group. And it's another one of our 7 a.m. Adventures together. And we meet throughout the legislative session every Thursday at 7 a.m. trying to solve problems like this. And so I think it's a really smart area of good policy when we can think about how can the state of Illinois invest in assistance that allows our citizens to age in place? Because we know that one of the most expensive places to deliver care is in a nursing home. And so we can make, and we have been, and I've been proud to support legislation that raises some of the reimbursement rates provided for in-home care, expands eligibility of who can provide those services, because oftentimes the best person to do so might be a family member. And we need to be open and available to provide resources if that family member now has to step away from their work in providing care and providing some assistance to do it. It's important to do those things because as from a fiscal responsibility standpoint, and that's a big issue always in state government, we can end up coming out ahead by making sure that small investments for this type of caregiver assistance can keep people out of the nursing home and preventing them from spending down their income, enrolling in Medicaid, and then creating different types of liabilities for the state of Illinois that way. So I think it's a really good question, and AARP has been a leader in making sure that we advocate for those type of rate increases and eligibility changes.
Yeah, and you're not going to see on issues like this any difference between my thoughts and Ryan's thoughts. Absolutely. A few years ago, Representative Don Moffett, who was a Republican from Galesburg, and I sponsored legislation in the House and the Senate that allowed for family members to be caregivers of patients with ALS. And I had a family in East Peoria that the woman was taking care of her husband who had ALS, but she didn't have support. So we passed a bill that said, you know, we should have family members being able to be paid as caregivers for their loved ones. And that's been a pattern now that we've had for quite a few years, and it works. It works, and it makes a lot of sense. And the more we can do to help support families in that kind of a way, I think the better quality of life is going to be for them, but also the quality of life in our communities is going to be. So I don't want to repeat everything that Ryan said, but I think we're on the right track on this.
Okay, is this on? All right. So I'm going to be creative here. I'm going to combine an AARP question with one of the questions from the audience. And they wanted to focus on the issue of prescription drugs, which obviously impacts seniors a great deal, and you know what you support to lower the cost of prescription drugs. But this comes from Linda Durkin from Peoria, and she asks, who are the 5 members on the Prescription Drug Affordability Board? How do we contact them? Does this board also look at drug markup by entities like hospitals? So this whole area is focused on the area of prescription drugs. So Senator Koehler, I'll let you tackle that one first.
Well, we actually don't have a Prescription Drug Affordability Board yet. I'm the Senate sponsor of Senate Bill 3108. There's a House version. What is the number of that? AARP. Anyway, we'll get that. We just had a town hall meeting this past Monday at Bartonville at the library where we talked about this. So this is something that we have proposed. We're trying to get this into effect. The whole issue of being able to afford drugs is one that is really at a crisis point. And part of the problem is that we know that prescription drugs, especially some of the newer ones and the more expensive ones, can be purchased in foreign countries cheaper than they can be in the United States. And that drives us nuts. You know, it really does. Why should we have to go to Canada to buy drugs that are manufactured and researched here? And if you remember back when Medicare Part D was put into place for the prescription drugs, the one caveat to that was that the federal government was not allowed to negotiate with the drug companies for discounts. Now that has changed, and we're starting to see that. So President Biden has already said he's going to implement that. We're going to, and many states have already anticipated that coming, and so we're going to do the same thing in Illinois. We haven't done it yet, but we're going to say whenever Medicare has a lower rate on a drug, we want that as well for Illinois. So we're going to piggyback on that. But we're also talking about putting together a prescription drug affordability board so that we can do what other states have done, and that is look at some of the higher cost drugs and to see if we can't have an upper payment limit on those. I won't read the whole list here, but all the drugs that we talked about in the town hall meeting, I listed off, and they're all ones that you recognize because they advertise them very heavily on TV, right? I have no idea what but I know the names of the drugs, and you know, why not take that, because it's got to be very expensive. You know, why not take that money and actually reduce the cost of the drug? You know, wouldn't that make some sense? So this is a big issue. We don't have that board yet. We are. I'm also the Senate sponsor of a bill which is asking the pharmaceutical industry to have hands off in terms of 340B. How many are familiar with the 340B drug program? It's not well known, but it's a program that the Heartland Clinic uses, that our hospitals use. It provides drugs at a discounted rate to patients. And the pharmaceutical industry is saying right now that they should be able to limit who can get that, right? And it's a threat to the hospitals. It's a threat to the Heartland Clinic because that is a source of drugs that can make it more affordable for people. So there's a lot of issues around prescription drugs. We were trying to resolve those. We are going to take some action this spring on it, I guarantee.
Well, again, another great question and a great item of advocacy from the AARP. We've done a couple of things in the legislature over the last several years. I've been certainly in support of them. These have been actions taken at a bipartisan basis. Things like capping the price of insulin was a big one. Imagine these, and you may know or have had an experience, folks that have had to ration their insulin because of the out of control and exorbitant costs for what's essentially a pharmacological commodity at this point. And so we set price caps first at $100, then $35. That's been something that Illinois led the way in, and now is becoming very common in states throughout the country. I think actions like that are important, but there's some other things that we need to do as well. And if you're tackling the high costs of prescription drugs, you're dealing with this multi-layered system that goes from the manufacturing of those drugs, including some of the R&D components that go with it, then the pharmacy benefit managers, the PBMs, and then the point of sale, the pharmacy, the retailer, and then all of us as the end consumers. We spend a lot of time in the General Assembly trying to unwind, especially that middle piece, because the PBMs are the black box of drug pricing. And those organizations have a lot to do with what the final price ends up being to all of us at the point of sale. So things like drug rebates, most of the major drugs that Dave was referring to may be offering rebates to your insurance provider, the state of Illinois as a large healthcare provider, and try to unwind what the value of those rebates are and who benefits from them is a really big deal. And so I proposed legislation that would, at the point of sale, guarantee that a certain percentage of rebates, I've proposed 90%, that 90% of the rebate on a drug can go directly to you, and you could see it at the consumer level and have an understanding of what your pricing and out-of-pocket liability would be. It's tricky, though, because the rest of the healthcare delivery system has some of their hands on those rebates as well. And they may say, well, if you increase the point of sale rebate offering, that may put upward pressure on premiums. And we don't want to do that either. So we need to land in the right place to make sure that we have a good balancing act. So whether that's 90% or 80%, And we could have some flexibility in the number as long as that we do it carefully. But the intention is to bring better visibility into pricing and to make sure these rebates that could be tremendously valuable are passed on to the consumer. So that's something that we're working on. I think it's a good bipartisan idea. We're spending a lot of time on this issue. There's working groups continuing throughout the summer. You know, our legislative session, the bulk of our work goes through the end of May. But both Senator Koehler and I continue to work on all sorts of initiatives like this throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, and Ryan is exactly right to pinpoint the PBMs. Are you familiar with that term, the pharmacy benefit managers? They are the culprit in this. And last year, I passed a resolution in the Senate which asked the Auditor General to do a study and research in terms of the state of Illinois, the Medicaid program, on how much we are paying PBMs in this process of, because Medicaid does provide, prescription drugs for folks. And because other states have had problems with this and this is especially harmful to the small pharmacies, like Allman's Pharmacy over on Western. I mean, the small pharmacies are our friend, not our enemy. It's the large pharmacies and the PBMs that take and are trying to create a monopoly on this. But the report came back, and it was interesting that basically said the state of Illinois has no idea how much we're spending on drugs. And so this has precipitated some hearings in the House on this. Natalie Manley, I think, is heading those up. And we're going after that because and the way PBMs work is that they have formularies. And so they'll make a deal with a certain drug company for, XYZ drug. And they'll say, okay, if it's on your formula, we'll give you rebates. The rebates are big or huge. We're talking about equal to the price of the drug itself. And so when you go and your insurance plan says, okay, this drug is on the formulary or it's not, and that makes a difference whether you get it at your pharmacy or not. The reason they're doing that is not because they're concerned about your health, but it's because they're concerned about them getting the rebates. And so we have to, and CVS is vertically integrated in this. They own Aetna, they own Caremark, which is a huge there's 3 PBMs in this country that control 80% of the market. And we have to pay attention to this. Ryan is exactly right.
So I hope you can tell how detailed and smart these two are. Did you want to say something?
That's a good point.
I'm not going to step on that one. I think you nailed it, Brad.
Yeah. So again, we're going to be creative and weave a bunch of things together here because we're getting a lot of great questions, and I appreciate that. But one of the things that AARP wanted to focus on was the livability of our communities from a transportation infrastructure standpoint. Someone in the audience, and I think this is a really thoughtful question, Carol. This is from Carol Huggins from East Peoria. From what I understand, about $34 million was made available by the federal government to the greater Peoria area for infrastructure in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. She can only find reports that pinpoint $8 million has been spent on these funds. Do you guys know where the rest of the money is earmarked for in the greater Peoria area so we don't lose these funds? Jim Breminger, I'm sorry if I'm saying that name wrong, is concerned about transportation from some outlying communities to Peoria, especially across the river from Tazewell County. He says, we know the way Peoria goes is the way we all go. We need Peoria in the Peoria area to work together. And then somebody else is also concerned about the sidewalks and ties it to the Disability Act. So there's concerns, infrastructure, transportation, making the communities livable. And I'm curious, I don't know where things stand with the money that was pinpointed in the bipartisan infrastructure bill for our area, but what do you guys know about that? Ryan, I'll let you go first.
Well, thank you, Brad. I think there's a reason that infrastructure discussions are bipartisan. I wish that we saw even more bipartisanship with what took place in Washington, D.C. for investment in infrastructure funding. Of course, that's critical to the state of Illinois and to central Illinois. And I'd have to get back to Carol on the $8 million that's spent versus the 30 some that we hope to receive. That's probably an inquiry that I make through our members of Congress. And so former council member Jensen, maybe jotting that one down too for us. But, there, like I said in the first statement I made, investing in infrastructure is a smart thing to do. And it's something that Republicans and Democrats work together to do. And there's no better example of doing that here than in the state of Illinois, and then specifically in Peoria. And so if you think about in 2019, we passed our initiative for bipartisan infrastructure investment in the state of Illinois. And we were a leader. First of all, we had some catching up to do. That's a reality that I'd have to acknowledge. But then we became a leader in investing in infrastructure so that when the federal government, Congress finally moved forward with something, we were in the leading position as a state to offer the matching funds to enable the quick receipt of those dollars to make sure that they weren't spoken for and moved to any other location. So we've got to continue to invest in infrastructure. We have a long way to go, but we've been doing it for many, many years, whether through the statewide capital bills that I've mentioned, 2019 and a couple rounds before that, or at a Peoria level. We've been getting really creative for many years about how we invest in infrastructure, especially in building out the warehouse district. If you remember what a 5-lane Washington Street looked like as the truck route through the warehouse district, you can imagine it was never going to work for creating that type of urban renewal that we're now seeing. So we had to get very creative about how we access those funds through federal grants, through state allocations, through moving money from the S-curve and all sorts of old ideas, Dave. But I think it's been something very smart that we'll continue to do. And then making sure one of the things that was a priority for both of us in the 2019 Rebuild Illinois capital bill is that we could send more money to our units of local government so that they had the resources to invest in things like sidewalks. I don't think we'll see a mass state of Illinois sidewalk solution, but we need to make sure we're investing in our local governments so that they can tackle those issues as well.
Yes, infrastructure projects, roads and bridges are usually a three-way participation, federal government, state government, and sometimes local funds, depending on where the project is. Bridges probably are more state and federal. So that money from the federal government will come to IDOT. IDOT will have their 5-year plan. It's kind of a rolling plan, so that they have all their projects lined out of what they're going to do. And this is matched with state money, and in some cases there's a local match that's required on local roads. We have done, I think, a tremendous job. I was there in 2010 when in 2009 when we passed a huge infrastructure bill. It was, remember, coming out of 2008, we were in one of the worst recessions we've ever seen. And our response to that recession in 2009 was to pass a $31 billion capital bill under Governor Quinn. Now that was out of all the states in the country, there was about maybe 40 billion, maybe $50 billion passed for infrastructure. Illinois had 31 billion. And so we were saying, let's put our money where we can not only have jobs, but have something to show for it. And come back 10 years later to 2019, under Governor Pritzker, we passed a $45 billion capital bill. Now, what that means is that our local tradespeople get to go to work. And that's good for the economy, and that's produces jobs, and so it improves our roads. My wife and I just took a vacation. We hadn't taken a vacation for a long time, so we drove 3,800 miles to the maritime provinces, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. So we went through all the states to get there, through New York and Vermont, and I didn't notice a difference on gas price in any of those states. In fact, Illinois was lower than some of them. Now we've paid for our infrastructure bill by raising our gas tax and indexing it so that it adjusts now to inflation every year. And we charge electric vehicle owners an extra amount for their license plates so they can pay for their portion of the gas tax. And we have better roads than just about anywhere else. And that's just my personal observation, driving all those miles. So I think we've done a good job, and we need to continue that. And what we've set up with the lockbox, which now says if you raise money from gas tax, it goes into infrastructure, that we have got a formula for the future, and this helps local governments too, because the motor fuel tax, that they get a distribution of that, a proportion for county highways and for city highways, for municipalities. And so I think we've done a good job of addressing that, and we've got a formula now that's going to work for the future.
So being moderator, I get to, prioritize which questions I ask. And those of you who know me well will know that this question fits my thinking. It's from Mary Sierra from Peoria. She says, when did making mean noise become more important than making sense? I find many current leaders selfish and unkind, which is frightening. Where is the civility which in past years has been an assumption and minimal requirement of our legislative process? Senator Koehler?
Yeah, I don't think you have to be mean to be in politics. I've tried to always be respectful, even if I disagree vehemently with somebody. I think in all my time at the county board, city council, or in the Senate, I can't remember any time where I've ever said something that was unkind or untrue against fellow legislator or against a staff person. It always used to just really gripe me on the city council, especially when different council members, will not mention any names, would go after staff and berate them, because I'm not sure what that. My mantra is always to be good, to be kind, to be gracious, and to be humble. And I think that if we would to see that in politics as well, that just tune that noise out and try to stick with what is really important, and we know what's important and what's not. So,
Ryan,
that's much I can say.
Well, thanks, Mary. If we could all just kindle your spirit and act with the type of kindness that you exude, we'd be much better off. I think Dave said it perfectly. Look what's happening in our country right now. Look at the razor's edge that we're living on, the amount of disdain and division that exists. And we need to pull ourselves back from that abyss. And it's much easier said than done. But I don't think that rewarding nastiness is the right solution. I will say, we kind of get the government we design, and this seems as good a time of any, Brad, is to make a point about one of the biggest problems gripping our nation, but certainly it's on very vivid display here in Illinois, and that's the evilness of gerrymandering. When we create legislative districts where people are only talking to one political party, that's the entirety of how their district is formed, and they're incentivized for doing that and punished for reaching across the aisle and engaging in any type of collaboration, boy, we've got a recipe for disaster. And that's what we're seeing play out. I absolutely believe that it is an essential ingredient to some of the nastiness that we see in politics right now. If you had elected officials running for office with incentives to reach across the aisle and collaborate and work down the middle, you would see very different outcomes from the type of tweets, social media rants, and speeches that are given from elected officials all throughout the country. So it's a big problem in Illinois, and it's a problem in the nation.
Well, I think that, obviously that's an issue that I've worked on for 12 years of my life with my good friends in Change, Illinois and others. I think the key thing that Ryan said that you need to understand is why redistricting matters is it's about fair elections and accountability. Because if you have districts that are more fairly drawn, and other states have done it, you have competitive elections, you have new people willing to throw their hat in the ring. Usually there's more civility in the way the campaigns are run. And it really does end up with better government, which really is hopefully what we all want. I want to also mention that, I think I'm the only college professor in America that for the last 17 years has taught a class on bipartisan leadership is the most effective way to govern. And last spring, I had some of the top student leaders on campus in the class. I had the head of the college Republicans. I had the head of the college Democrats. It was co-taught with me by my former boss, Ray LaHood, and he was in the classroom. And one of the co-founders of the Institute and an inspiration for all of this is U.S. Senator Everett Dirksen and the Dirksen Congressional Center. And Tiffany White, their executive director, is here, and she came in as a guest speaker during her class. Let's recognize Tiffany. But I keep telling the people out in DC that are involved in this, you have your No Labels group, you have your Bipartisan Public Policy Center, but they're all in a bubble out there talking to the same people. I said, you need to get out into the colleges and universities. That's where you can actually make a difference and develop new leaders for the future. So obviously, I'm very passionate about that. So another question is, what is the status of the CO2 pipeline? And do you think putting CO2 under the ground is a good idea?
Well, I can start on that. We had bipartisan legislation that was just concluded at the end of this legislative session in the General Assembly to begin to deal with the issues of CO2 pipelines. So first of all, there's a moratorium right now in place on CO2 pipelines in the state of Illinois. That's important to note because we do have pipelines for all sorts of things. And we believed as a legislature, it was important to take a little bit of time and get our bearings straight on what carbon pipelines could mean for the future. So we have a moratorium on place. We're expecting future guidance and regulation from the federal government to be coming soon. So that's the first thing that was included in bipartisan legislation that passed back in May. There are some other provisions. ADM has been testing the notion of carbon sequestration, capturing carbon and then injecting it far underground for many years now, at least 10 or 15. But that's still a relatively short amount of time in what is a potentially generational types of changes. So we're consulting with the leading experts and scientists. Illinois is sort of at the center of this discussion because of our geology. And we have the right geological conditions far underground with a sandstone formation that is ideal for this type of carbon storage. But we've got to make sure that we get it right, that it's done in a safe way. And so there's probably a couple of different issues. One is the issue of pipelines that's now under a moratorium. We won't be seeing those pipelines moving forward now. Some of you have seen billboards or public hearings about those initiatives. And then a separate discussion about the utility and the safety of capturing carbon, which is good. That's good for the environment, but then the implications for storing it underground.
This has been a very controversial issue about the carbon pipelines, carbon sequestration pipelines. And Ryan is right, and I supported that legislation because it does put a 2-year moratorium, and it asks that, we anticipate that the federal government is going to come out with some guidelines on it. I am not against pipelines. I'm not against carbon capture. I think that it depends on where and how it's done. One of the things during this discussion that I let some of the folks know in Springfield is that absolutely not through the south side of Peoria. Through an environmental justice area and in an urban area is not where it belongs. The issues that really are kind of revolving around this whole issue out in the rural areas are, number one, how much is there going to be compensation for use of land in terms of pipelines, and whether there's eminent domain. So those are some of the issues that are driving the discussion with farmers and with rural folks. Also, when you sequester carbon, the issue then is in terms of rights of underneath the ground where that carbon seeps into. So your property basically goes straight down, and if that carbon leaches out into somebody else's area, did they get compensated for that? These are the technical issues. But if you think about it, and I mentioned about the clean transportation fuel standard of the low carbon fuel standard, what we have the opportunity in Illinois to do is, if you take the fact that our agriculture products, corn and soybeans, absorbs an awful lot of carbon out of the air. I mean, that's a carbon sieve. It just takes that carbon right out of the air. And if we have a financial framework and by which we can have credits for farmers doing the right kind of thing, such as no-till. No-till is a great way to keep carbon from being released into the atmosphere. In Illinois, only about 5% of farmers use no-till. There's great potential there. And if you construct the right kind of, again, financial framework, whereas the fossil fuel industry would have to pay and buy the credits, and farmers and others that are engaged in activities that reduce carbon out of the atmosphere, they get to sell the credits. Then you can start to create this financial framework that makes doing the right thing not only the right thing but profitable. And so I see a scenario in which you could have corn that would go to an ethanol mill, and they would then sequester the carbon like they're doing at Marquis Energy right now. They're drilling their hole on their well on their own land. That you would come out with sustainable aviation fuel that actually would have a negative carbon value to it. Think about that, a negative carbon value. So we're taking more carbon out of the atmosphere than we're putting in. And that's the kind of thinking we have to do with this. It needs to be done right. It needs to be done to standard. There's a situation that happened in Mississippi some years ago where there's a carbon pipeline that was put in where it shouldn't have been because it was on an area of land that was susceptible to erosion, and it split. And what happens then is that it sucks all the oxygen out of the air, so that when fire trucks came to put the fire out or whatever, their engines wouldn't run because there was no oxygen to run the engines. So that's a situation we don't ever want to have repeated. But there are standards, and I remind people that are really, one-sided on this, is that we have a lot of pipelines in Illinois, and it carries a lot of nasty stuff. So carbon is probably the least of our problems. If you think about all the gasoline and the chemical pipelines that are going through here, we've got tremendous amounts of them. Pipelines, are regulated by the National Transportation Standards Board. It's considered a transportation, and pipelines they have plugs that they put in them, and they can run different kinds of chemicals by plugging them off and running them in sequence. It's a fascinating area. But Illinois is kind of a crossroads of pipelines in this country. So just understand that too.
Okay, I'm going to connect a couple questions again here. This is from Don Baker, what do you consider the major issues concerning education in Illinois, and what solutions can you offer? What steps do you feel are necessary to stop people from moving away from Illinois? And that's kind of connected to Rich Gentry's question about, promoting Illinois and Central Illinois as a great place to live, quality of life, work, cost of living, and all those things. But your ideas of how do we keep good people here, Senator Koehler?
What jobs? I mean, jobs is number one, right? I'm pretty excited about the fact that Illinois is now attracting people to come in to work. I just visited Precision Planting out in Morton. Have you seen that building go up? I didn't know what it was. It was this big, huge, monstrous building. And I thought, what is it, Amazon coming or what? Then it said Precision Planting. Precision Planting is a worldwide company, and they make component parts that are for agricultural implements that enhance their ability to, they've got a, like in planting, and mostly they have technology that affects planting of crops. And so they have, different, and they use AI in this as well. They can have a planter go through the field, and have an insecticide sprayer go through the field, and they can, through AI, can determine whether that is a plant that's supposed to be there or it's a weed. And they'll spritz a little bit of insecticide on that, and it says that they will reduce herbicide use by 60% in fields if they can do this. And so what they do is they have folks that manufacture these products, and if you go over there, I went there yesterday. It's a huge place. They've got 500,000 square feet under one roof, and they are just parts. And so they'll have a dealer that wants to, they're a wholesaler. They'll have a dealer that wants to, provide this for farmers out in their area. And so they can buy these parts, and they come and they train them on how to retrofit their equipment. Now the big manufacturers like John Deere and Case and all those don't like it quite so much because they're competition for them. But the person that took us on the tour says, we're having people come in from out of state because we've got jobs here. Rivian, Bloomington Normal is booming. In fact, they've got a severe housing shortage right now. But I went on a tour of Rivian, and a guy, they have a catwalk on the top of the production area, and this guy yelled, "Hey, Dave!" And I looked down, and it was one of my granddaughter's teachers. I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "The benefits." But folks are coming here. I mentioned natural fiber welding. That's a business that's on the move. We've got some good businesses, and I foresee that we're going to have a whole area between Peoria and Bloomington Normal, which has Morton and Goodfield right in the middle of it, is all going to be a industrial business corridor. They're talking now about studying bus lines to. That's one of the problems that Precision Planting has, is they don't have good bus service from Peoria out there. Well, we need to solve that problem. We need to have better public transportation. But I think that we've got some good days ahead of us in terms of what Illinois can do. I mean, our work ethic and our ability to do things right and to do them on time is really going to set us up well for the future. So they always talk about people leaving. Well, other than us in this room, a lot of people want to go to south to retire, right? They don't like the winters, but there's a lot of other people that want to come to Illinois and be a part of it, because this is a good state.
Good, Mary. See, kindness is good. Certainly, I agree with everything that Dave just talked about in terms of jobs and the importance of jobs. But let me go back to the education question as well. My parents are here, so they can fact check this story if it's not accurate. But I grew up in Peoria, initially off Reservoir Boulevard. And when I was 5, think about this story. My parents made the decision, we were in Pleasant Valley schools. They said, we need to move. And we need to move somewhere into the city of Peoria so we can be in District 150 schools. That's the preeminent place to get a good education in this region. And so we moved. And when When I was a little guy and getting ready to start school, my parents thought it was important that they picked up where they were and made a change to get into Peoria Public Schools. Now, how often are we seeing stories like that anymore? And unfortunately, it's the other way, Barb, that is taking place. But look, we have to solve that. And Peoria can continue to be successful. We can gain jobs. We can build out amazing quality of life amenities. But we'll be missing out if all of the young families have to choose to locate somewhere else from a school perspective. Now, in the General Assembly, we've been putting more and more funding every single year. We put an additional $350 million into our K-12 education every year. And so funding is part of that, but leadership is an important part as well. And I can tell you it breaks my heart that my two daughters, who are 11 and 6, are not students in Peoria Public Schools right now. Now, they were until COVID. And when we had, and what a difficult time for everyone. And I think we're all trying to make the best decisions that we could. But we had every intention of continuing our daughter, who is in 2nd grade at that point, to be a student in Peoria Public Schools until 1 week before the start of school. There was a vote by the school board to say, you know what, we're not going to do in-person learning this year. We had spent all summer working together on a plan to have social distancing and students coming in different waves, an A program and a B program. We were going to make it work because we needed to have agreement as a community that our kids need to be in school. Do it safely, but there is no substitute for in-person learning. And when that rug got pulled out from us and many other families, people made decisions that are hard to walk back. And so we had to go find a school that was going to be open for business for our kids. And it's hard to yank your kid out of school and make those transitions. I hope we come back to District 150 at high school. We have 3 generations of Richwoods Knights in our family. But go Knights. But that's, that's one of the challenges. And so, no criticism to anyone, but I think one of the most important positions as an elected official in any community, it's also one of the hardest and most thankless jobs, but we need really good people on our school boards. And it's been a tough environment with the nastiness and all the division and issues that take place there. But we need to have really, really good people, smart business people, strong community leaders. We used to have the cream of the crop would feel compelling to go forward and participate as a school board member. And we need to return to that. So if any of you are itching for something else to keep you busy, we could talk about wherever you live, maybe participating in the school board, because those positions are absolutely critical. And we've got to get back to that story that I began with, where we have strong families that want to get into our public school system and recognize some of the great values and programs that are only available there.
Aren't you going to introduce your mom and dad?
That would be my dad, Steve Spain, here, the owner of the Costume Trunk, going to work in a little bit just down Main Street, and newly retired Janine Spain, who was the Chief Operating Officer of Unity Point. So actually, if you have really tough healthcare questions, we just pass it off to my mom, and still a board member at Heartland Community.
It's Carl
Clinic.
Health. Janine, yeah, I'm sorry. Let's give him a hand. I forgot to address the education issue. I'll just say that my 3 daughters graduated from Woodruff High School, go Warriors, and from Bradley University. And
Go Braves.
My grandkids are all in Peoria Public Schools. Granddaughter just graduated magna cum laude from Richwoods, and she's going to University of Illinois. It's a good school system.
So I would expect, one of the more thoughtful, detailed, tougher questions to come from this person, Marilyn Leyland. So hi, Marilyn. Good to see you this morning. I'm not even sure I understand it, but I'm going to give it a shot. She says the business model that private equity uses to buy successful enterprises, bleed them, dry them up, and dump them is ruining certain parts of our society, like newspapers, nursing homes, for-profit medical facilities, and childcare operations. Is there any discussions of trying to rein this in?
First, I'll go first. Yes, I think so, but not probably at the state level. This is really more of a federal issue in terms of that. But what we can do, and we do this whenever the state gives money to help businesses. We just gave Rivian quite a few $1 million. There's provisions in that. Number one, there's a clawback provision. If they don't honor the contract, then we claw that back. If somehow they do what you just Brad read in the question, and use that business opportunity to way to strip it down and to sell it off and to leave the carcass in the communities where they were built. Yes, I think that's unfortunate. So it really is a federal issue primarily, but we can do things what we can at the state level in terms of what resources we have to put into businesses. I think as consumers, we also have a responsibility, and that is to understand where our products that we buy come from. I've got a list of things that I will not buy and places that I will not shop. And I think that everybody ought to have their own list of that, because I want to reward places that I feel good about. That's why I bought my shoes with natural fiber welding, because I feel good about that company. And I think that we need to pay attention to that. So I don't know, that kind of punts it to the federal government, but I think that's really their issue.
Yeah, I agree that that's probably a federal issue, but we witnessed some of the examples, I think, Marilyn, that maybe you're thinking about. And I know here in this room, we have several retired leaders from the Journal-Star, and just think about what a transformation we've seen in our newspaper here, going from something that was so powerful and comprehensive, especially coverage of local issues. And that's what I think we've lost more than anything else now. We do not have, if this meeting were 9 years ago, even, there'd be a row of cameras at the back here, because this is important news and important gathering of learning and discussion here, a legislative town hall. There's no local coverage for hardly anything anymore. And it really is a problem. It's a problem for communication, for accountability, for local patriotism, even to be able to celebrate some of the unique and good things that are happening here in this community. So I think that's one great example of the destruction of local journalism. And I think we all suffer for it. We don't need to see a newspaper that is reporting events through your mailbox that happened 3 days ago.
Restaurant reviews.
Okay.
I will say this. I read local papers in the morning along with the Times and the Post, but the Panagraph probably does a better job of local news reporting. They actually have a political reporter, Brendan Moore, and that. But that is a real loss. I appreciate knowing about how restaurants are doing, but I don't need to know all that. And Barb, we miss the days when you were there.
So I'm going to make
yeah, right.
I'm going to make one exception because I care so deeply and dearly about this person. We're not doing open mics generally. When Barb Drake wants to ask a question, I'm not going to ignore her.
Well, Ryan and I are leaving then.
And most of you know she used to be the editor of the Peoria Journal-Star. But she's also a Bradley alumni, and Bernie and her have been deeply involved in OLLI. So Barb, I'm going to give you the one open mic for the day. So here you go.
Thank you. I am very concerned about the loss of newspaper coverage of local governments. We don't know what's going on. at city council or school boards or anything,
Right.
park district. And so that is a big loss to this community, and it can be very damaging. I'm not even thinking about the big editorial crusades that we ran that led to the development of the Heartland Community Clinic and all, and so many things. Peoria Riverfront Museum. Anyway, but what bothers me is that we don't know what is happening at local in our local governments and what we can or should do about it. And people ask me, who should I vote for city council? I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
But what can we do about that? Is there some other way?
Well, there's definitely a need, because the one thing that good news reporting does is it helps interpret what they see going on. I mean, you can have on Facebook or on public access TV all the meetings you want, but if you don't know the behind the scenes issues and why a certain vote was taken or what, that's what newspaper reporting did, is they got behind the issues and they said, this is what's really going on. And it helps us as a public to be able to understand that. We don't have that. We've lost that. And I know there's been some attempts of say how we can get more public investment into newspapers and things. Yeah, that's part of it. But really, the First Amendment is a separate, sacred thing, and it should not be involved with government. So I guess we need more entrepreneurs to step up and to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I'll just add that, and we've looked at some legislative ideas, tax credits for journalists, and maybe even some incentives for local coverage. It's hard to do. It's kind of a clunky solution. We agree. I mean, we see this problem, and it is devastating at the local level for local government. Dave and I both served on the Peoria City Council, and in both of our times, we would have wall-to-wall coverage and we met every Tuesday night back in those days with all three broadcast channels, radio interviews, the Journal Star with a dedicated beat reporter covering only city council, in addition to others that are doing the school board, the park boards, and all of the other smaller units of government around our region. We've lost all of that. So what is happening in those rooms, in those discussions, is a mystery. And I would say just one more thing. I mean, one thing we can do not use social media for your news feed. You are not getting real news if you rely on social media. You're being told exactly what you want to hear, which is part of the problem. And I'm going to look it up here on my phone, but if you haven't seen this, there's a Netflix documentary. I think it's called The Social Dilemma. I'll check on it. It is must-see TV, and it is scary program about how social media and what their business model, how it works. Because we think of all of ourselves as the customers and consumers. Hey, I'm on Facebook. Here's my account. I'm a customer of Instagram. We are not the customer. We are the product. We are the product that is being sold to advertisers, and everything about us are being fed into algorithms to give us more information and tell us what we want to hear. So we will continue to scroll and feed and see more advertisements that are sold by those companies. So take a look at that and remember that next time you're seeing breaking news on social media.
I don't do Facebook. My Nora does Facebook. So I told her, I said, if there's anything important, you let me know what it is. But no, I have people that do Facebook for me. I don't even read my own Facebook pages. But I
you would crawl under the bed. I mean, you would be.
Yeah.
For us, we do have to share information about, office hours and things we're doing. But if we had to sit and read the nasty stuff that people are saying about us, every single day, you couldn't get out of bed in the morning. So there's a reason we ignore it.
I don't read it. If somebody wants to say something nasty to me, they come and say it in my face.
All right. So we've had a very positive, congenial gathering so far, but there's a number of questions that, of course, are related to the current presidential election. And I'm not going to use the tone or the specificity of these questions because I'm just not going to go there. But I do think, given the current times, a lot of people have thoughts about what's on your mind when it comes to the current federal election and the tone of it and the direction. We try to keep these things as non-political as possible, but I understand that there's people out there that want to touch upon this. So I'm going to open that door and good luck.
I am a delegate to the Democratic Convention. And as of last Sunday, I am fired up and ready to go. A big change. I mean, I appreciate so much President Biden. I'm too old to run for president. He is too old. I think the old man that's left in the race is too old to run for president. So I think this is a real change this week, and I feel the same intensity and the same spirit now that I felt during the Obama elections.
Well, just, my observations again over the last month, and I mean, it has left us all scratching our heads a little bit. First, we'll go back to the debate. What a peculiar decision to have the earliest presidential debate in modern history with the performance that ended up being delivered by President Biden. I just think it's strange, and I don't indulge in conspiracy theories, but it was an odd decision. It's certainly one that backfired on the president, because I was not at all surprised to see the news on Sunday of President Biden announcing that he was stepping back. I think he had no choice. He had lost every single ally, and it has to burn him in a big way, because these are people that he's invested decades working with and supporting that had now turned on him. But the position really became untenable with his performance and the drag on other races that would come from his candidacy continuing to move forward. So that has changed now with Vice President Harris running. I think in many down ballot races where you have seen energetic Republican enthusiasm and a lot of Democrats staying on the couch and not participating, I think that's a game changer that has happened with her elevation now. So we're going to see an enthusiasm gap that is closed. I think it's going to be a very different kind of contest moving forward. The other thing, I hope that these calls for not unity, that we're going to have political unity between choices in the November election for Republicans and Democrats, but the calls to bring the temperature down following the assassination attempt of former President Trump, I hope those aren't dissipated now. I hope it's not everyone just retreating back to that corner and say, all right, Biden's out, Harris is in, and let's just beat the hell out of each other. We need to remember that we are living on a razor's edge here. And when we have a 20-year-old kid who it seems didn't even really have a political ideology, but just wanted to inject himself into something so terrible that was such a close call from what would have been an incredible historic national tragedy, we've got to remember that things need to change. And so I hope both of these leaders and then their running mates at the top of the ticket will do something to continue to bring down the temperature. I think that's essential. And then the other thing that's just interesting for us in Illinois is what will Harris do for her VP pick? Because one person that is in the mix on those discussions is Governor Pritzker. And so that has a trickle-down effect then for what could happen here in the state of Illinois. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a fascinating and wild and crazy ride.
So
Did anybody hear the story about the group of young people that were watching some clips of the Obama-Romney debate and comparing that to the Biden and Trump debate, where Obama and Romney were really talking about serious policy issues, and Biden and Trump were talking about their golf handicaps, and we were wondering why young people weren't excited about the election. Now they're excited. Sorry.
So, and I a little bit hesitate sharing this story, but it goes so well with what we're talking about and social media and everything. But I have a Facebook account and I limit it to posting about family gatherings, about fun travel, about significant events happening at Bradley. But after the Trump rally incident, I felt compelled to do a posting. And I basically said that, what happened at the Trump rally was horrible, tragic, and reprehensible. Trump almost lost his life with a bullet narrowly missing him. A firefighter died protecting his family. 2 others were seriously wounded. But I also said that the events of January 6, 2021 were tragic and reprehensible, and that law enforcement and others lost their lives. And my simple statement is, can we all agree that political violence is completely unacceptable and it should have no part in our democracy? So I'm gonna end it with this, and I know some of you had specific questions for one of the panel members or the other panel members. I try to steer away from those, but I'm sure that maybe they can stick around. And and that some of these questions are thoughtful and good, but I try to not ask questions that would not apply to both of them. But I thought it's a big picture question. And I think it's a good way to end our time together. What is the biggest challenge to Central Illinois in the next decade? And what can our elected officials do to mitigate these challenges?
Well, I just, in brief concepts, I think one is we have to continue to develop jobs because that's why people come to different communities. I think we have to do more in terms of making sure our education is quality, and that's from K through 12 and through universities as well. I think we have to make sure that we're doing our part that we can with the environment. I think we've made a good start on that in Illinois. Again, that's going to attract people to become a part of us. I think we need to continue as Illinois to be a beacon of hope for people, whether they're wanting protection from LGBTQ persecution in other areas, transgender people, whether women looking for health care. I think we need to continue to be a beacon of hope for people. As we and I'll just mention this. I'm on the Underground Railroad Task Force. I chair that. And we're talking about how Illinois was this beacon for slaves coming out of the South to looking for freedom in Illinois. We are still that beacon of hope.
So for us here in Central Illinois, and specifically the Peoria region, we are undergoing a major transformation. And it can create some anxiety. But I take comfort in knowing that we have done it before. This is a region that has reinvented itself again and again. We've gone from being an agricultural community, harnessing that strength and turning ourselves into the whiskey capital of the world and financing the almost the entirety of the operations of the federal government at one point. But we had to go through a transformation during Prohibition, and then enter in Caterpillar and our manufacturing days and some of the strength and success that we've had there. But we're going through another transformation again. And we will do everything we can to preserve and protect and gain every single Caterpillar job that we have in this community. It's absolutely essential that we do that. But we know that that legacy has changed here in Central Illinois. So that's the next transformation that I'm talking about. We're very lucky and blessed that we have such bold, innovative strength in healthcare with two major healthcare delivery systems, with the University of Illinois College of Medicine. These tools are amazing for us. But at the same time, those are nonprofit organizations. Hospital margins are not a good business to be in. We could have lots of employees, but it's not the same as a Fortune 50 company in the same way Caterpillar is. So we're undergoing this transformation and transition where we need to utilize the strength that we have in Caterpillar manufacturing, in bold healthcare leadership and innovation, and we need to use it and apply to future economic growth, because jobs are going to be absolutely the key for everything we do. And so it's companies like Natural Fiber Welding and others that we need to continue to incubate, grow, leverage their connections. And those pillars that I talked about, whether it's agricultural or manufacturing or healthcare, can lead to new types of jobs and businesses. I don't know that any of them on their own are going to be 10,000 or 20,000 employee jobs. They certainly won't. But we need to be in the business of creating more local firms, developing businesses that can grow at 100, 200, 300 jobs at a time. That will be our currency for success going forward. And to do that, we've got to go out and sell this community. The advertising that you see going on right now about Choose Greater Peoria is very deliberate and intentional. We need to make sure that people can recognize both ourselves, because sometimes we need to boost ourselves, but especially the outside area. What a special region that we have, a quality of place, an environment that's great. And we can use that to attract new business and gain jobs with those that are already here. Every time I see an ad for Peoria in Chicago, I'm really, really happy about that. We don't all get to see that very often, but that is the right thing that we can do to continue to tell our story. And that will be a part of our next transformation. So I feel very good about where we're going as a region, because we've done this before and we'll do it again.
All right, great. So to come up to give a few closing remarks, we have Lori Hendren and Michelle Reggio, who really are chiefly responsible for this fantastic event. So let's give them a very warm welcome.
Thanks, Brad. Just on behalf of the entire Continuing Education Division and the OLLI membership, we really want to thank you and our elected officials today for taking time out of your morning to attend today's event. And we hope you had a really good experience.
Thank you. I'm Lori Henry with AARP Illinois. I want to thank you all for getting up early with us and having breakfast. We cannot do this without Michelle and Brad. Please, let's give them a round of applause. They make all of this happen for us. And bright and early this morning are beautiful individuals in red, our AARP Illinois volunteers. And I want to say, if you're interested in volunteering, I know we have a lot of OLLI folks, but AARP Illinois, we do so many things, from doing events like this to education to virtual events to doing movies for grownups. We made it easy. It's right here in your packet. You can just scan it or just talk to somebody in red if you're interested. We would love to have you. And if you're very passionate about legislative issues, we have again made it easy. We've gone digital first with our legislative report from last year. And you're going to say, Lori, why is it 24 up there? I'm going to say you're very smart, because we're putting it together now. But right here's a 23. All you got to do is scan it, first name, last name, email, zip, and you automatically get it right to your phone for you to read and look at. But to our lawmakers, thank you so much. We lobby you. You see my face. I've seen many of you. I've sat in this certain individual's office talking about our caregiver portal, which this is a huge win for AARP. We're the first in the nation to have a state creating a caregiver portal and be a one-stop shop for all of the needs when you're in your caregiving journey. So no more having to Google and trying to find something when you're in the point of crisis. I've been there, I understand. And I want to thank these two lawmakers for making sure we got that across the finish line in Illinois for you. We heard you, so thank you. Again, thank you very much to our leadership with AARP Illinois that truly allows this to happen. We thank you. And if our volunteers can come up, we're going to take a picture. So
Real quick before everybody leaves, we are looking for a cell phone that has a blue cover, right, Pam? Is it an iPhone? Right. So if anybody's seen a cell phone with a blue cover, please let staff know.